turn your dial. Dapper Don's here to make you smile with a co-host sharp and riff so true. We've got the laughs, the rants, the view. What's going on? Oh, what's the word? Indy's the city where we'll be heard. From Monument Circle to Broad Ripple on. What's going on with Dapper Don? So grab your coffee, Hoosiers, and let's get to it. 'Cause we're in the house!
What's going on? It's Dapper Don, and I'm excited to welcome you all back. So, here we are, the end of Season 2. Man, did I not think we would get this far. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. Almost 30 episodes of weekly content without fail. This is something that would have been unthinkable to me just a few years ago. And the content's good, like radio quality. I've received so many positive reviews and likes and things. I never thought I'd see that. I'm in shock at just how far we've come, even with this season, you know? So tonight, I don't really want to do an interview or a co-hosted episode, nor do I want to rip apart a video game franchise or rant about movies. We'll save all that for Season 3. I just want to sit down with you and talk. I want to strip away the persona and the pizzazz words, and just for a moment, relax and have a conversation with you. Talk about some of the things I learned while producing Season 2 and the transition from Season 1 as well. Now, where do we begin? Well, let's first talk about, I guess, what caused me to make the improvements I made in Season 2 in the first place. So, Season 1 solo content was the occasional interview, ranting, it was just me, no co-host, no very few people wanting to interview with me. And that was kind of the setup. I would read articles and I would just sit there and drone on with no real personality. And it was just kind of a podcast that was there. Everything used to kind of be recorded on like a shitty phone app on either my phone or my Chromebook. I mean, the audio quality on those things was so bad that it would echo in rooms where there was no echo. And it's not even considering the fact that, like, my Chromebook couldn't handle my mic, nor could it handle the recording studio I was using. So oftentimes, shit just shut down or didn't record or sounded way worse than it should on a USB mic. I'm not saying USB mics are the highest quality mics, but the mics I usually buy compete with the best of YouTuber mics. They shouldn't have sounded the way they did. I shouldn't have sounded like I was talking to you through a phone. And yeah, the audio quality, like I said, it was pretty bad. I was mainly doing solo scripted episodes and just kind of having those neutered, like very much planned out rants. It's stuff I would go back and watch back and start snoring, right? And while, there were some great highlights to be taken from it, you don't know how much hard work I had to put in to actually get those highlights from the episode, because I wasn't telling any jokes, I wasn't doing any gags, I wasn't nerding out, I wasn't even passionate about the content, right? No discernible personality, at least it's bad, right? The previous season's intro was some random thing I made in FL Studio in high school, 2019, almost a decade ago. And I thought that was acceptable. And, for a while there, I was less a podcast and more some kid recording in his mom's basement, right? And mind you, I wasn't in my mom's basement when this podcast started. I was on a college campus, but you wouldn't have believed that. And, and that's not even mentioning that I didn't even do the interview thing right? Like, I was still getting my footing with that. Like, the first interview I had with a major creator was like a guy with 90,000 subscribers on YouTube. This interview was going to be great. It was going to be something that was going to be memorable. I had a whole slew of questions ready. And it's similar to the questions I ask guests now. And it was going to be something that was so awesome. And then I dropped the ball. What I ended up doing was I had recorded it on Zoom. Zoom is terrible with this type of thing, but I tried to use a kind of combination of Zoom recording and screen recording so that I wouldn't lose the footage. The only problem is I didn't turn the screen recording sound on, I believe. It was a really confusing setup. But I didn't turn the screen recording sound on, so when the screen recording was finally captured, I didn't get any sound. And, well, let's just say it's kind of really like, now I understand that it's very rude to ask a guest to re-interview because you couldn't record correctly, right? They just gave you their life story. They just expressed all that passion with you. They just expressed all that fervor. They just gave you some of the best that they can give you. And then because your studio didn't pick it up, you now have to they now have to spend another hour of their time re-recording. You know, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have gotten as mad as I did, but yeah, he ended up ghosting me when I asked for the re-record, right? And I ended up getting mad and blowing up at him, blowing up at his management team, and wasn't very professional of me. To this day, that's one of the most embarrassing memories I had. And I I I uh I did end up apologizing later, obviously, because I learned the lesson from it. But it's like I didn't necessarily understand until later on when I started doing regular interviews that, like, oh, these people are giving me the best that they can give me. These people are giving me all their passion. They're giving me all their fuel. They're giving me all their energy. The least I could do as an interviewer was make sure that when they were recording, it came out in the best quality. Was make sure that I could keep following up with them so I can market the episode properly so it looks professional. I wasn't doing that. And then I got mad at that guy for not promoting and wanting to re-record. But it's like, would you want to re-record an hour-long interview until the person you were interviewing with got it right? Especially when he had made his podcast seem like it was far more professional than that, which it was, but that was kind of you know, it's kind of a slip up. And then there was another creator that my friend actually convinced me to contact. She was an Instagram creator, maybe around 30,000 followers. I'm not at the time, right? And I actually got the interview with this one. I went out to a studio and paid $200 for like an hour and some change in that room. And that was the first big interview I think I did. And I was pretty proud of it. It was the first high quality interview I did. And yeah, I didn't even think I was going to get the interview. But then I messaged her and she like responded. And it's like, here it is. I'm a little Instagram account well, my previous account had like 100 something followers on it. But it's like, apparently that was enough to warrant an interview. Now, it was as much of an honor as it was. I still consider that to be the worst interview I've ever done. For one, I was not at my peak. I was asking like really stupid questions. My jokes weren't getting across because I was nervous. She wasn't giving me much because she wasn't much of a talker, which why you would agree to an interview and you're not much of a talker, I have no idea. I don't know if you expected me to do some magic like puppeteering. You're not dealing with somebody who can do that. I usually work best when people are willing to give me their all, like I'm willing to give them their all, give them my all, right? But yeah, so I rent out this $200 studio. The interview lasts 20 minutes, not even half of the time that I rent it. And then she immediately leaves after that. No banter, no jokes, no laughs. And then on top of that, to promote the interview, all she does is vague posts. She doesn't name me. She doesn't name what's going on. She doesn't even directly show my face in any of the marketing. I had to do that. And then she asked me later to take it down. So, she was part of like a community of black people that were kind of on that black excellence bullshit, which is something I'll get into later when I talk about why I'm no longer religious and why I no longer subscribe to that shit. But anywho, basically it's a bunch of black people that decide that if your blackness is not good enough for them, they don't want anything to do with you and they're going to treat you like crap. She was part of them, and I didn't know that at the time, but now I do. And I was really looking for that audience crossover, you know? I was really hoping for that audience crossover, I think. But the content itself wasn't good enough to be worthy of an audience crossover. It was more like, oh, well, I'm glad she did the interview with you, but this is still a terrible video. And again, it's on me as an interviewer, right? As the host of the show, it is on me to be coming up with questions, to be separating those questions into segments, and to put something in the middle to alleviate, to have something that the guest can do to make the show memorable. It is on me to do that. It's not on anybody else. So even with how terrible this guest was, I still could have salvaged it. I just didn't, right? And then, another thing that was wrong with season 1 was the ache for a co-host. There was a spot missing, right? But of course, I couldn't get a co-host with the setup I was working with. I was working with a shitty recorder in a room. That's it. That's not exactly co-host material, right? Like I can bring a co-host into Riverside. I can even bring a co-host. I can even record with a co-host on Google Meet. But anything else, and you're just starting to dive into weird technical issues, echoing. It's like the interview I did with Chris Hammer the recent interview I did with Chris Hammer. I was lucky to be able to salvage that one as far as the echo goes, because those library rooms at the UIndy campus are very, very echoey. I was very lucky to be able to get that recording to the quality it was at. Thank you, Riverside. But yeah, there was an ache for that because there was nobody to bounce off. There was no dynamic. There was no banter. Uh, so that was a thing. And also, I was having trouble upholding content by myself because I wasn't passionate about what I was doing. So that was another issue with season 1. And then on top of that, that's not even considering the fact that I quit after 20 episodes. No proper season finale, not even an announcement of going on hiatus, not even a fuck you, I'm deleting my account so people don't have to look at the shame anymore. I mean, I did it once, but then I came back. But it's like, yeah, and I'm actually gonna. I've never gone into detail about that time that I, quit and why there's a big gap between episode 20 and S2E1, a bigger gap than I even wanted it there to be. And it's partially because of this. So here recently, there's been a push on my platform to unmask. We'll start with that. We'll segue into the next point through that. Yeah, we have real conversations and we get to the real story and find out truly what's going on. And as a result, we've put out some great episodes. We've had some very compelling and deeply inspiring insights and life lessons. We've also, as a result, been able to nerd out with a lot of people in the best way possible, But that wasn't necessarily something that came out of nowhere. It wasn't what season 1 was doing. Because I used to mask heavy. I used to hold all of my personality in because I hated myself. I hated my weirdness. I hated my sexuality. I hated my weight. I hated just everything. Anything that I theorized was the reason that I was alone, I hated about myself. Turns out that the reason I was alone was because I was unwilling to express who I truly was and just run the risk of losing people. Yeah, I resented everything. And that's the hating everything was part of it, but there was also limerence involved. Now, I've talked enough about limerence on this show to basically film 2 separate documentaries on it, right? So I'm not going to go into too much detail. For those of you who don't know, limerence is that kind of fool's gold of love where you think you love somebody, but you're really in love with a version of them that's in your head and not in real life. Limerence is, contrary to popular belief, something that can also happen in family relationships where a family has certain expectations of you and they craft a version of you in their head that does not reflect the person in real life. Anytime you are loving a version of somebody, you are limerent about them. Now, is it always a bad thing? No. With love always comes some form of limerence. I mean, after all, it's called the fool's gold of love for a reason, right? Elements of limerence do occur in genuine attraction. Where limerence starts to become a situation and not just a part of infatuation is when you start getting into, situations like mine where I was so obsessed with a person that I borderline stalked them on social media. And, it's not something I talk about a whole lot, but I've talked about it enough. And, as a result, I hated everything about me. Nothing was good enough because I couldn't pull that person. So that was another thing. And again, I'm not going to talk too much on it because it's been covered, but, and that didn't help. It didn't help that my depression was bad and I was going unmedicated for a very long time due to the religious bullshit from my parents and the fucking mosque, which I will get into. Trust me, I've got it planned to at the very least talk about why the Nation of Islam, I don't buy it anymore. I've got a whole thing about that. We're gonna get into it. Trust me. Oh, but all that isolation sent me down a very dark path. And so the only way that I saw to improve, which my mother still gets mad at, she's still pissed off that I decided to go to a recovery center. I had to go to a recovery center for my own safety, and I had to do it for just so I could improve myself. And now they got me on the right medication. But what really was impactful about that recovery center experience was it was it was very much a situation where I could unmask and be truly loved. Now, as far as what if I would recommend going to recovery centers, personally, I would stay away from a recovery center unless you have to go there for your own safety. If you are imminently a danger to yourself or others, then you might need to start with some hospitalization, go to a recovery center or whatever, because they do help, but their goal is to help calm you down. Get you on the medication, get you right, monitor you for a few weeks, and then send you on your way. That's their goal. All while, sending you through groups and grouping you out so that you get angry, blow up, and then become radically honest. It's not necessarily the funnest setting, but you could really meet some great people in there. But if you could avoid it, I would. I'm not going to sit there and decry you, though, for going. If you feel you need the help, you need the help. But yeah, and also they're a little bit sinister with how they operate. For example, technically you can leave whenever you want, but if you do what I did and go out of state to like Kentucky and you're just kind of in the middle of Kentucky, you can technically leave whenever you want, but in that same token, you'll just be roaming the streets. And until you come back, nobody can help you. So you will literally just be sitting there in the middle of a state that you don't know, and they'll happily do that if you want to leave. They will happily do that. Now they'll warn you a little bit, but they'll eventually end up happily doing it because they can't take you back, right? And that's a little sinister because it's like you took me out of state, and now that I feel I don't need the help anymore because your doctors didn't recommend it, you can't take me back home even though you took me out of state. It's a little bit weird. So that's why I say only go if you really, really feel the need to. And I mean really, really feel the need to. Because you're going to be sitting there for 4 to 6 weeks and you're going to hate every day after the first couple of weeks, after the honeymoon phase wears off. You're going to hate every day because recovery centers are always small. The people there, you always see the same faces every day, and readily available food is not much of an appeal as a fat guy would think it is. It's just like it's just cushy. It's way too cushy, and it's like, you know, I like a little roughness in my life. I don't know. But I did meet a lot of impactful people who, once again, let me unmask and be who I truly was. Now, obviously, my readiness to accept the therapy that they offered varied from recovery center to recovery center. Some places got the scorched earth, call the SCP Foundation containment breach version of myself, and the other places got the cute, shy, timid. But of course, even that would end up becoming scorched earth if I was pushed far enough. But after I got out of that those situations, completed the programs and did what I had to do to get out of that situation, I basically cut off every toxic relationship after I've ever had. I even cut off a grandmother of mine because a few years ago she had like made some comments comparing me to a cousin of mine who was in the military. Oh, if he can do this, why can't you do this? So I was like, fuck you, bitch. I don't care what happens to you now. It's like I'm not obviously I wish her the best, but it's like you're not gonna sit there and basically blatantly disrespect me. That's what this old people. Quick aside for a minute. Like, why do old people just think that because they're old they can just run in and just disrespect anybody, right? What was that? What was that story about the lady and the Tim Hortons that ran in being aggressive with the employee, and then the employee whooped her ass rightfully, and the lady died? It's like, you're old, bitch. You need to be fucking, I don't know, eating cottage cheese and talking about fucking records. You don't need to be sitting up there starting shit and making snide comments and trying to manipulate. You're too damn old. You don't have any attractiveness left in you. and you're trying to conduct yourself like you're a mean girl. Come on now. Come on. But back to it. I did end up falling off my meds again, but I was kind of forced back into it, so to speak, because of another circumstance that ended up instituting an even bigger change. But anywho, I think we've gone a little bit long, long enough for my taste. I'm not trying to make this episode super long. So we're about halfway through. We're going to go on a groove break, the final groove break of the season. Then we'll jump into more of my rambles. And hopefully we can coalesce into a point and just kind of throw our attention to what's going to be coming next season. So it's going to be something that you don't want to miss. You're watching What's Going On with Dapper Don. Stay tuned. You're tuned in to What's Going On with Dapper Don. Don't touch that dial. For those of you just tuning in, I'm just kind of rambling, hoping we come to a certain point at some point in the video, but I'm not targeting a certain length. I'm not targeting a certain time. Literally, the only thing I'm going to be doing is making sure this audio is up to par and it's got the same production value as my other episodes. But for the most part, this is just me kind of talking. But anywho, back to the semblance of a story that I'm telling. I did struggle with diabetes. I actually almost died from diabetes. I'd known I was pre-diabetic for a while. Every recovery center I'd been to, even before I started this podcast and then quit it and then started again, had told me I was pre-diabetic. Every blood test I'd had, pre-diabetic. Pancreas was messed up, all that stuff. Well, not messed up, but it wasn't. A lot of the enzymes were off, right? But I didn't take it seriously. I spent a good chunk of time after those diagnoses kind of choking down whatever. I mean, I still eat my fair share of junk food, but I throw some vegetables in there. It's fine. I half care about my life, you know? But yeah, I did that and I had no meds, no concept of exercise, no concept of activity. I was just kind of doing whatever the fuck I wanted to do. And the day it happened, well, first off, let's start here, right? Because of the fact that I was doing whatever the fuck I wanted to, I had racked up a lot of sugar in my blood. And slowly but surely, side effects were starting to peek through. I'm surprised that with what my blood sugar ended up being, they weren't worse, but they ended up peeking through. And yeah, I noticed my stomach was starting to hurt more often. I was often less hungry. Mind you, I'm on Ozempic now. That type of not hungry I'm used to. But it was to the point where I couldn't even eat a salad. I wasn't even hungry enough to eat a salad. But I was still choking down food. So, I was vomiting every 5 seconds. I was using the bathroom every 2 seconds as well. That was something that was very weird because I know that I can spend some time in the restroom, right? I mean, what fat guy can't? But normally, I can use the restroom, go a few hours, eat something, and then be back in the restroom. But I was using the restroom every 2 seconds. It's like every 2 seconds, it felt like I was going to explode. And I didn't know that that was a sign that something was wrong. I didn't know what I thought. I just thought maybe I was drinking too much water or something. Maybe I was overhydrated. But then I looked it up, thought it might be diabetic related, but I was like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't know why I didn't think it didn't make any sense. It just didn't make sense to me. So I ignored it. And I kept ignoring the symptoms until one day I was supposed to go to a Halloween party with some friends. And I had to end up canceling on those friends because my stomach was just killing me. Like I couldn't even force myself to do anything. Another thing I noticed is that sugary things were starting to taste weird to me. Like sodas were starting to taste weird. Candies and stuff were starting to like have a weird taste to them. All that. And I found myself also being a lot more sleepy. Like I can take a good nap now. Like my Sundays are usually nap days. I don't do shit. But like this was horrible. Like this was constant tiredness, constant fatigue. I'd get off from like a 3-hour shift at a part-time job and be knocked out for the rest of the day. Now, I was scooping dough at a cookie place. So I mean, there was some energy involved, especially with how fucking tight those fucking dumbass rules and regulations were. Oh, you're scooping the dough too slow. It'll be dry this way. It's like, bitch, let's move on. But yeah, no, I didn't notice that as a red flag either. But eventually, my mother had the idea to check my blood sugar. So we check it, and it is 500. And so I look it up, I Google it, and 500 turns out to not only be bad, not only be firmly in the diabetic range, but had I waited another, say, couple of days to go to the hospital like I had first suggested, or like I had first thought I would either have been in a coma or I'd have died. You don't exist that long with blood sugar that high. You just don't. So I would have either been in a coma or I would have died. Either way, I wouldn't be able to record this show Or if I was, it would have been way later in the timeline. Yeah, but I wouldn't be sitting here today had I waited another 2 days to go to that hospital. And while I was in there, even though I hated the experience, I mean, it was still better than being in there for mental health. If you're hospitalized for mental health, you can't do shit. At least in a hospital, you can have your phone, you know, sitting there watching videos about historically accurate pirates. It's like, you know, it's fun and all, learning about pirates and medieval things. That's what kind of took my obsession with history to a new level as well. But that's literally all I could do while I was in the hospital. They didn't even let me have any water. They didn't let me have any water because I can't even remember why they didn't let me have any water. It was just ice chips that I could only have. They had to wait till my blood sugar came down for me to have ice chips. And I can't remember why they didn't give me any water. Maybe it was to prevent me going to the bathroom. I can't remember at all. And maybe it's a good thing that I can't because that whole experience was what some would consider traumatic. So maybe it's good that I don't remember everything. But yeah, I'm in the hospital, hated it. Visits from family, obviously, but no independence of my own. They kept taking my blood sugar every 2 seconds. Oh my God. I have never had my blood sugar taken so many times in my life. To this day, I don't want to be around no needles. Not voluntarily. No injections, no vaccines, no blood bank. I don't want to do it. It's too many needles. Plus, they wouldn't take me anyways. But yeah, I hated every minute of it because I didn't have any independence. And then I kind of realized that if I didn't straighten out, I was not just going to lose my independence, I was going to lose all ability to function whatsoever. So that kind of straightened me out a little bit. I started caring a little bit more. Took another job. They had a gym. I took full advantage of that while singularly focusing, obviously, on radio. Now, for those of you who know my journey with radio, you know that radio has always been a big part of my identity because I thought that I was the radio guy. I thought I was always going to be that guy that was like, you tuned to on air and he's talking about something interesting. But then after I'd gotten dicked around enough, seriously, they fucked me around more than any of the men I've ever been with ever. But yeah, after they fucked me around enough with the promises of hiring and then not really doing it, and then when I approached them about it, they're like, we don't have the budget for it or some bullshit. I started realizing, it's like this might be a nice, cool thing to pursue, just to kind of have it in the forefront of my mind, but I don't necessarily want to be spending my time pursuing this and placing my identity into this and placing my worthiness into this. Plus, I was thinking some other toxic things like, oh, maybe I'll get my limerent object back with this. Maybe some other girl will choose me. Maybe I'll finally be good enough. Good enough for what? I don't know. But that's what I was thinking, right? And again, I was off my meds. So, well, not at this point, I don't think. I think at this point I got my meds restarted back and I had not been off of them actually in a while. Again, I'm having a hard time remembering the exact timeline of things because again, it was a big blur. I took full advantage of the gym and I had just gotten tired of radio. I'd gotten tired of placing my identity into it. I'd gotten tired of placing my worthiness into it. I'd gotten tired of placing my all into what ultimately amounts to nothing but a simple email for them. So, I didn't give up on the dream. I just kind of rechanneled the energy into something else. That's when I started thinking about this show. And I think this was right after I had started like recording again, except it wasn't really as high quality, right? But that's when I started thinking about this show. It's like I started thinking, well, wait a minute. Because up until that point, I was struggling to find a good recorder. I tried using Soundtrap. And let me tell you something. I think I've mentioned this here on the show before. Soundtrap is terrible. It is absolute hot doo butt cheeks, especially if you're recording a co-hosted show. Because Soundtrap makes it seem like it can handle two mics in one room. Then you actually try it and you find out, oh, no, it can't. Or at the very least, if you think it can, it bleeds heavily. You can do it, technically, but if you don't want that heavy bleed, you'd be better off recording on Zoom or on a Google recorder, because at the very least you'll get some semblance of sound quality and echo dimming. Soundtrap made my videos sound like I was recording them in a fucking cave. And that's not even mentioning the inconsistent audio quality that I could not edit for because of how complex Soundtrap was. It was like if somebody took FL Studio and Riverside and combined them into an unholy mess. Or FL Studio and Audacity, maybe. And just combined them into an unholy abomination of just not awesomeness. So, that was kind of fucked up for a while, but eventually I was looking up podcast platforms because I was like, okay, maybe I can use FL Studio. And I was like, wait, no. I'm sick of using DAWs for audio editing. I'm sick of that because they don't seem to work very well for high mic quality. And this mic that I have now competes with the best of YouTuber mics. I'm not going to be sitting here and doing that stupid shit that reduces the potential of this mic. So I'm looking for recording studios and I'm doing research, and then I find Riverside. And Riverside, at first I have my doubts about it because you can only do co-hosted stuff with people that call in and they have to have their own mic. So I'm just like, okay, well, the quality is going to be inconsistent. I was wrong about that. Then I was thinking that the recordings were going to suck. I was wrong about that. Riverside gives you complete control. I'm not sponsored by them. I'm just saying. They give you complete control of every single aspect of the podcasting experience. You can account for everything. They even transcript your words. So if you want to cut out something you said, and it's like if you popped a couple racial slurs, you can go in and censor them. They give you complete control and complete freedom to produce your audio as high quality as you want. And that was something that up until then I had never experienced. And it's easy. They have a bunch of AI tools that'll take and pick out the bits of your audio. I think Riverside has the best audio editing AI out there. I mean, there's a couple other studios that kind of do it well, but Riverside's where it's at. And it's only like $29 a month to get the good stuff. So, I mean, honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. But yeah, I finally get Riverside, and now I'm recording radio level content, throwing in groove breaks. I got a new intro. It sounds like something you would turn to the radio and hear. And if that's all I wanted, then the only thing I'm missing now is the widespread appeal, or at least the niche appeal. So the next best step is to just keep posting, keep putting out content, keep being myself, and eventually I will eclipse radio, because radio is becoming podcasting anyways. Radio is becoming podcasting. Radio is becoming YouTubers, because when you can just be one man now and start a whole franchise, a whole company, these big giant radio stations with these unapproachable execs, they start to lose their luster. Black, white, Mexican, doesn't matter. Eventually, independent content will take over. So it's good that I hopped on this train now anyways. But yeah. So that's the story of the radio thing. And also, another thing that I had stopped doing was I was doing a bunch of relationship content, Reddit rants, psychology stuff. And it's like, I still do that, right? At first I was going to completely stop it, but then I was like, wait, no, some stuff I'm still kind of passionate about, but it's like, I'm not going to be making a video about every stupid TikTok relationship trend. I'm not going to be making a podcast about it because, surprisingly enough, there's nothing you can say about it. It's like there's only so many times you can say, hey, this is glorified emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is bad. Hey, this is glorified cheating. Cheating is bad. There's only so many different ways you can say, hey, men, hey, women, you do realize we need to fuck each other to keep humans going. So maybe, hey, let's not try and constantly undermine each other, before you realize, oh, these are just subcultures of miserable fucks. And normal people in relationships have no concept of this gender war bullshit. It's like, yeah. And to be honest, I understand women's complaints about men. For God's sakes, I've encountered more creepy men here in the last few months working at this goddamn job that I work at this fucking sales job, I've encountered more creepy men than I think any of the women at my job have. Like, maybe I need to get a boyfriend so I can be off the market so they can leave me the fuck alone. Jesus Christ. It's like I understand women's complaints about men. They're persistent and they don't know when to shut the fuck up. Like, I'm literally okay. I get this unhinged Uber driver this morning, right? So like I get in the car. It's fucking 7 in the morning. I'm not wanting to talk. I'm not wanting to do anything. I'm just wanting to get to work. And this motherfucker starts conversating. Okay, fine. I'll respond a little bit. And he keeps going. This is the thing, right? This is why women get so mad. Men, if you are conversating with somebody and they are not actively initiating conversation, asking questions back, if you even see them slip in another headphone, shut the fuck up. I should not be sitting up here taking out my music to listen to yo stranger ass. You're a stranger. I don't have to talk to you. You're an Uber driver. You're providing a service. Shut the fuck up. Drive the 15 minutes. Take me to where I'm going and then get the fuck on somewhere. But that's not all he does. He then starts like fucking trying to, hey, you mind if I peek your head into your leasing building and see if there's openings? Yes. Yes, bitch, I do mind. Aren't I supposed to be going to work? It's like I had to tell him, I'm trying to get to work on time, fella. What the fuck are you doing? Talking about, I didn't even think Uber drivers were allowed to make stops like that unless it was like for gas or to pump their tires. I've been in situations like that before. That's understandable. But to try and speak to my leasing office? What the fuck is wrong with you? Why would I want you living where I live so I could be bothered by your talking every day? Get the fuck out of here. This is the type of shit I'm talking about, right? It's like, I'm starting to get not even considering that the men at my job seem to love, hey, you want to ride home? You want to ride home? Like I'm some helpless, defenseless turtle dove. And it's just like, buddy, if you see me Uber home more than once, then wouldn't it be logical to assume that since I work the same place you work and we're getting paid the same type of paycheck, that I am using Uber to transport myself now? And if all else fails, the bus? You would think that any rational man would be sitting there like, okay, well, he's clearly using Uber. Maybe he doesn't want an offer of a ride every 5 seconds. Maybe it's insulting for that to keep happening because I am not a child. I don't care if it's being nice. If you see somebody doing something and they haven't asked you, stop trying to push the issue. I think women complain about men being creepy because men push the issue. Stop pushing the issue. It's like if men just like would see a woman pop in a headphone and be like, okay, let me shut the fuck up and walk on. Do you know how much fear that would alleviate? Oh my God. Do you know how much fear that would alleviate if you just saw somebody do something that indicated they weren't open to conversation and then just got the fuck on? It's easy to tell too. It's not like women make it difficult to tell when they don't want to conversate with you. It's like, I know this is a little bit of an aside rant and it's been going on for a while, but obviously this is not a planned out episode. So I mean, if you don't like this type of stuff, you can tune out, but I'm going to talk. It's like, yeah, the reason that women get so creeped out is because men just don't know how to stop. They don't know how to stop. They keep going. It's like if I reject a woman, she's not going to like it, but she's not going to resist as much as a man does. She's not going to try and rebuttal my rejection. How you rebuttal a rejection, you fucker? But anywho, why don't we talk about my hatred of religion? And because I did say I was going to talk about that. Why don't we talk about why I can no longer stand being associated with a certain religion? I don't know if I mentioned it accidentally, but it's the one Malcolm X was part of. I fucking hate that religion now. Why? Because the particular mosque that I went to not only traumatized an entire generation of kids with emotional and physical abuse, but it's fucking like, it's still corrupt. They aren't doing shit for black people. Okay? It's like, and also FD this, I don't know what his name is. Hold on. I need to pull up the video to make sure I got it. His name is FD Signifier. Look him up. He's talked about Tyler Perry. He's talked about black conservatives, which are the, black excellence people. Right. And Nation of Islam falls firmly in that black excellence, black conservative bullshit. And again, those of you who don't know, it's the black excellence people. It's those people who went to HBCUs, they graduated, and they got their head up their own asses thinking they're the bee's knees, and any blackness that doesn't equate to their blackness, they stomp down. So if you're a guy that grew up in the projects and is just trying to make ends meet, you're beneath them. You don't deserve the white man's respect. If you're somebody who's just going to work, coming home, and you want to stop to get a beer, maybe on the way home, fuck you. You should be whipped and hung. That's literally what their mindset is. It's basically the same thing as when the slave master used to have us beat our own people. It's the same thing, except it's voluntary. And they pretend it's liberalism. They pretend it's on the democratic end of things. It is not. It is absolutely not. And FD Signifier goes into a whole slew of it with his talk on black conservatism. He talks about Black Wall Street. He talks about all the stuff that black people are doing, and he demystifies it. He brings it down to earth. And he basically says, yes, we did go through racism. There is a history of us being targeted. And there are things that black people need to do as a people to rise ourselves back up. The black excellence bullshit's not going to do it. It's just going to keep dividing us because it's become black classism, you know? So I don't consider Jay-Z, Bill Cosby, or anything, or any Farrakhan or anybody like that, no black advocate. They are just devils who happen to be black. And that is where my opinion is firmly lied. And the thing about the Nation of Islam that perplexes me is they have all this talk about changing the world. Where are your demands of policy? Where are your policy demands? Where are your why aren't you going to the legislature? Why has nobody else except black people heard of you? Why, when I was in the religion, did I have to explain it so many times to other people if y'all are supposed to change the world? PewDiePie is closer to changing the world than you fucks are, right? Fucking the next episode of Shameless is closer to changing the world than you fucks are. Like, seriously? It's like, I admit the Nation of Islam did a lot for black people back in the 30s, 40s, and fucking 50s. But guess what? I ain't old, so I don't care. And I'm not going to join your fucking trauma religion that's just white man this and white man that and blah, 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 blah. Meanwhile, you turn around and you treat your brother like shit. It's like, you blame the white man for this, you blame the white man for that, devil, 666, whatever. And then you're the one turning around to treat your brother like he's beneath you, to treat your brother like shit. So who's the devil really? Is it the friendly white man or the absolute disgusting piece of shit black man in a suit? It's like, who's the bigger bad guy, huh? Homelander or Darkseid? I'd say Homelander. Darkseid doesn't pretend he's good. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's kind of where my, and plus I'm bi anyways. They don't really like the gays too much, which is fine. Most religions don't. Not insulted by it or anything, but it's just like, let's just say the ideology wasn't compatible with me. So I've taken up my own form of belief called the Dapper Don humanism. I know, I named it myself. Basically, and I've written it down here, I believe that the most reliable source of truth about existence is the natural world itself. If there is something divine, it is most likely expressed through the laws and patterns of nature rather than through the proclamations of individual prophets or religious institutions. Reality, science, and observable evidence are the closest things we have to universal revelation because they apply to everyone regardless of culture or belief. Human religions may contain wisdom, provide community, and inspire positive change. And again, the Nation of Islam did just this. Christianity does just this. But they are ultimately human interpretations shaped by their time and circumstances, and therefore should always be open to questioning. I do not like the idea of infallible leaders. I cannot stand that. And the Farrakhan's and the Elijahs and all that, they're infallible leaders who can never be questioned. What do you mean I can't be with 20 women, but Elijah can? What do you mean by that? What do you mean that I can't poke into why Elijah gets to be with 20 women, but he can poke into if I fuck my girlfriend before marriage. Fuck you. Fuck your old, wrinkled, apocalypse doomsaying cult leader ass. Anywho, back to the written down stuff. Morally, the most important guiding principle is to minimize harm and respect the autonomy of others. Personal disgust, cultural taboos, or inherited traditions should not be mistaken for objective morality. Actions should be judged primarily by whether they cause real harm or violate consent. Human diversity, whether in identity, belief, or behavior, is a natural part of life and not inherently wrong. Basically, being gay is a genetic divergence. Get over yourselves. Okay? Nobody's trying to pull you into a cult. Okay? You know, the real pedophiles are straight people. Huh? Not all straight, right? But I mean, it's like most of the real pedophiles are people that go out in public claiming to be straight and conservative. And yet you look in them files, which we've been joking about all season, but it's true. You look in them files, and what are they doing? You know? But yeah, it's not inherently wrong. In this view, human diversity isn't inherently wrong. In this view, evil is not a cosmic force or a devil directing humanity, but rather the result of harmful human choices, social pressures, and misuse of power. Because humans have free will and limited knowledge, no one can claim perfect understanding of the universe. It's another thing the Nation of Islam did. They claim to be the truth. Well, how do you know that's the truth? Where's your data? Where's your you said there was a half white man that came here on July 4th, 1930? Where's the records of his existence? Why do the only records of his existence trace back to a Middle Eastern chef that beat the shit out of a guy and went to jail? Why does the only record of his existence trace back to a criminal that looks suspiciously like him? And it's like, also, why would God come as a man that looks white to liberate a bunch of black people? That seems a little counterproductive to me. I don't know. That doesn't seem like right to me. That just seems like more massa stuff, except it's a half black guy, so it's okay. It's like, no. And again, if God came in person, that means that by definition he has imperfected himself, meaning that not even his understanding of anything can be trusted anymore if he has chosen to do that. Imagine if you were a sharpened pencil. And to try and be more relatable to the other sharpened pencils, or to try to be more even in lead with the other sharpened pencils, I don't know why the fuck you'd do that, but just go with the analogy. You dulled yourself. You're no better than the other sharpened pencils anymore. Why the fuck would I use you to write over any of the other ones? And that's not even considering the fact that you would think there would be a greater impact on history for a man who's supposedly a supernatural being in person. But apparently, actual change from these guys is too much to ask. And then the whole white people were made by some big head scientist that had 3 hearts in his eyes or something. I don't fucking know. Like, or fucking the white devil, Yakub, the island of fucking, what was it, Padmas, and fucking he took a bunch of black people into the woods, and that's why we have fucking nappy hair, and then there's a guy that blew up the moon. That really just sounds like an episode of like Phineas and Ferb. Or it sounds like something I'd put in a comic of mine as a character origin. It does not necessarily sound like it's going along with the canon of humanity, if you get my drift. Or fucking what? God mixed up all the languages so people wouldn't understand each other. Isn't that just the most delightful excuse for racism, to say that people having different languages and cultures is a curse? That we were all once one homogenous society, and now we've split apart, and it's because of our sin, and it's because of our arrogance. Isn't that just the most delightful explanation for xenophobia? Isn't that just the most delightful excuse? The Tower of fucking Babel. Isn't that just the most delightful excuse to, to have your little racism and anti-Semitism movements or whatever? That's delightful. I'm not saying they should do the mosques like the Scientology buildings and start subway surfing through them, but maybe think about it. I'm putting forth that we consider it. I'm putting forth the bill. I'm not saying it should happen. I'm just putting forth the bill. If it passes into law, I didn't do it. I just put forth the bill. But yeah, the best approach to life is to remain curious, question authority and dogma, seek truth through evidence, and strive to live with compassion and integrity. In short, question everything, harm no one, and recognize that whatever we call God is most likely found in the order, beauty, and complexity of nature itself. And yes, I wrote that because I can cook. Okay? But yeah, so I hate religion, I'm bisexual, I am unmasked fully, and let's see. Well, I guess it's time to get to the final thoughts. We've been at this long enough. So yeah, final thoughts. I guess if I were to give you any concrete lesson, it's just to keep posting. This whole time, while I was going through all of that, for the majority of it, I was posting. So I mean, just keep posting, and yeah, you'll see some results there. Also, never stop discovering yourself. Never just believe what somebody says, and always question your own mind when it's telling you you're not good enough. Because what evidence does it have that you aren't good enough? Some stuff that people said? Huh? Okay, people talk. Everybody has opinions. But what real evidence do you have? Because if you weren't good enough to be alive, well, nature would have found a way to take you out a long time ago. And yeah, what's next is that after this, I'm going on a 3-week break, and then I'm gonna come back, and season 3 is gonna have. It's gonna be I think a interview heavy season, a nerd heavy season, obviously. But there's gonna be a new intro. We're gonna try to get some more diverse songs for the groove breaks. Just gonna improve on pacing and things of that nature. Improve on professionalism as far as interviews go, booking better guests. And yeah, I mean, it's just gonna be like it's gonna be an improved version of season 2, except the 29 episodes in season 3 are gonna be episodes that I would actually watch back instead of the cancer that was the first 8 episodes of this season. Oh, and I didn't even mention that, by the way. The reason I started doing thumbnails was because I got tired of looking at that same logo. Because it's like, okay, if I'm looking at videos, right, and I'm looking at somebody's channel, and all I see is the same beige ass logo. Don't get me wrong, I love this Lego. This logo. I don't love Legos. I love logos. I love this logo. It's made from me by an old friend, and I cherish it, right? That old friend I've since cut off, so fuck him, but I still like the logo. It still fits me, but it's not a video thumbnail. So that's why I've been getting a little bit more diverse with that. But yeah, we're gonna keep doing that. These are videos that I'm actually gonna want to go back and watch, which means it's videos that you're gonna want to go back and watch. And yeah, so I guess that's it for now. I don't really have anything else to say, and while there will be better interviews next season, I don't have anything else to give right now. So that's all for today's show and all for this season. If you like this episode and this season, like, subscribe, comment, all that jazz. All my links will be in the description, and I'll see you in 3 weeks for an all-new What's Going On with Dapper Don, this time with Season 3. You don't want to miss what I have in store. Peace out.